This model is a model of the posterior abdominal wall and a couple of the pelvic viscera here. So you can see the posterior abdominal wall has two muscular features, the psoas major and the iliacus, so the iliopsoas. You don't see the viscera because the viscera have been removed, but you can see the kidneys, the left and right kidney, the abdominal aorta, and the inferior vena cava. Notice that this is very posterior, just in front of the vertebral column. At the level of L4, the abdominal aorta divides into the common iliacs, and then the common iliacs will enter the pelvis to divide further into the external iliac, which continues past the inguinal ligament as the femoral artery, and the internal iliac down here in the pelvic region that supplies the pelvic viscera. The abdominal aorta has three unpaired branches, meaning there's not a left or a right. From cranial to caudal, this is the celiac trunk, and it has many branches. This is the superior mesenteric artery that goes over the left renal vein. And this is the inferior mesenteric artery. Now, blood supply to the kidneys is by the left and right renal arteries coming from the abdominal aorta. And also the gonadal arteries, so in this case, if this was male, it would be testicular arteries. In the female, it would be ovarian arteries. They are both branches of the abdominal aorta. But what you can see here is that the veins draining the gonads are going to be asymmetrically drained, meaning the left gonadal vein drains into the left renal vein, whereas the right gonadal vein drains into the inferior vena cava. In addition to the arteries and veins, we can also see the ureters passing through the abdomen, posterior abdominal wall, and entering the pelvis to go and empty into the bladder. This is the rectum, which is the most posterior structure of the pelvic viscera. The ureter lies down on top of the psoas, and then it goes under the gonadal vessels. So this is where the pneumonic water under the bridge is very useful here. Water under the bridge on both sides. Okay, so that's clinically very important. This model shows the abdominal aorta and the inferior vena cava, several of the vessels that go to mostly the foregut and some of the midgut, and the viscera. So just to start off, this is the spleen. Here's the left kidney, so the spleen is very close to the left kidney. Here's the pancreas. These two up here are the left and right suprarenal glands, or the adrenal glands. This is the gallbladder. Here's the duodenum, the first part, which is the ascending part, the descending or the second part, and then the third part, which is the horizontal part, and then the fourth part here. Okay, so first, second, third that crosses the midline, and then fourth, and then this is the start of the jejunum, and this would be the pyloric sphincter, where the stomach would empty its contents into the duodenum, the first part of the intestines. The pancreas has endocrine functions and exocrine functions. The exocrine functions include exocrine enzymes that are secreted into the second part of the duodenum. All right, so as I said, here's the abdominal aorta. This is the first branch of the unpaired branch of the abdominal aorta, the celiac trunk. So I'm going to go through a couple of its branches. It doesn't have all of the main branches. This is the splenic artery. that basically travels on top of the pancreas to go to the spleen, and alongside of it is the splenic vein. So splenic artery, splenic vein. This is the common hepatic artery. The common hepatic artery, one of its important branches, is the gastroduodenal artery. Then the common hepatic artery goes towards the liver and becomes the hepatic artery proper. Hepatic artery proper. And the hepatic artery proper, the bile duct and the portal vein run together as a portal triad. This is called the portal triad. The hepatic artery proper gives rise to the right and left hepatic arteries, and typically the right hepatic artery gives rise to a branch called the cystic artery. The common bile duct, the bile is traveling this way, so it's opposite the blood. The bile is coming from the liver and it's going to be stored into the gallbladder, and this structure here, the green, is the cystic duct. So this is the cystic duct taking the extra bile that has to be stored within the gallbladder. These two ducts are the right and left bile ducts that come together to make the common bile duct. This is the gastroduodenal artery, and as I said, this is the splenic artery. These two vessels that can be seen going over the second part of the duodenum are the superior mesenteric artery and the superior mesenteric vein. And then of course past this area you can see the other than these two branches, there's an inferior mesenteric artery coming off of the abdominal aorta, and at the level of L4 the abdominal aorta divides into the common iliacs, and then of course the common iliac veins will become the inferior vena cava.